as a creator, I stumbled upon this question that got me thinking long and hard about this. Whether or not I would be able to work on something that is not my own. Now, I'm someone who has written stuff. I'm someone who has written stuff with the idea of other characters involved. Someone who I've written stuff where it was like, well, this is based off of a certain topic, had a lot of stipulations behind it. I enjoy critiquing things for the way that they are, not necessarily for what it is that I want them to be. I understand that very nature. I'm someone who I've purchased comic books before, so I know not every writer for a comic book character is going to write the same way. But the character should feel like the character. Otherwise, you're kind of failing the comic book. So having that question was something that just stumbled in my brain as like a general thought. And I was like, well, I'm very arrogant, egotistical, maniacal, if you will, and very crass in the jokes that I tell and the way how I talk. Fuck, I'm so just oblivious to other people's feelings when it comes to things on how passionate I feel about them. But I'm also very passionate. But again, you would know this stuff about me if you're subscribed to me, and I thank you and I appreciate it. And don't worry, we're gonna keep this party going. But still, it's a very good question, really, upon reflection, if you will. Just whether or not I could honestly say, can you work on something and give it your all if it's not your own? And I would say yes, but I feel as if that's one of the bases behind creativity. If you're truly creative, you can be put in a box and still make the best of that box. The limitations that you're given are not things that essentially you worry about as like, oh, I can't do what I want to do. Well, you're not supposed to. You're not supposed to do what you want to do. You're supposed to do what you can. And again, going back to the example of comic books have proven for years that just because someone didn't create this character, you can improve, if not supersede, what the original creator did with this body of work simply by adding in your sentimentality and your creativity towards this character. And some of the times, those things actually outshine what came previously as like the basis for their character. And other times, a majority of the times now, you basically have people who essentially are trying their damnedest to introduce what they want the character to do, what they think the character should feel, what they always imagine the character should be like. And then essentially you have the bullshit that you get now in comics, as well as the creation of Sweet Baby Inc. for video games, where these people are tackling things that are not their own, and they're putting in their own ideologies behind them and daring to say that they're creative when they're not. That would be the opposite of creativity. You're making something, you're just using another name in order to facilitate it, when you already know if you put it on its own, it would not sell. It needs that title, or it needs that name drop, or it needs that character involved in it in order for it to even be about something. If you don't like my comics, don't buy my book. Isn't that what she said? And then what happened? Nobody bought the comics. Now where is she? What happened? So I thought about that, because this was something that's like, this is one of those random thoughts that pops into your head, or like things you come across that just makes you sit up and stare at the ceiling for some hours, trying to ponder like, oh my God, like, am I capable of such a thing? And I truly believe that I am. That I'm someone who you would give me I want to work on comics. I love Spider-Man. I love Spider-Man. So you tell me you can write for Superman, and I'll sit there, and for a minute I'll be taken back because I thought I said Spider-Man. But they would go, you work on Superman. Could I do it? Yes, I surely could. And I'm not someone I don't like Superman. I do not like Superman. I don't like Superman. I don't like Captain America. Certain aspects of Iron Man are things that I'm just like, I'm over it. But it's not because I think that they're bad. It's just that they're not my cup of tea. That's why there's an abundance of characters that exists. My cup of tea is what it is. So, but the fact remains is that if I was given the opportunity to write for Superman, am I going to make his character bad? Am I going to do something like constantly have him whine and cry about the pressures of being Superman. No, that's antithetical to that character. And I understand that. I just don't like the character. But it doesn't mean that I'm not capable of presenting a very good structure or a very good concept of the character. So I'm even like, currently I'm watching the Superman animated series. Rewatching it for the first time. I already gotten through the first season. I'm now in the second season. The last episode I left off on was when they had the race between Superman and the Flash. And so far, again, I've gotten it this far. I'm watching it, and there's a bunch of stuff on it that I don't like and a bunch of stuff on it that I do like. But at the same time, I'm looking at it and I'm wondering, could I write for Superman? And it's like, yes. And it's like, because as much as I don't really care for the overall aesthetic of what Superman is, I enjoy the character. I enjoy the character that is Superman in certain aspects, but I really don't like Lois Lane. I just really don't like Lois Lane and the trouble that she proceeds to constantly get into for no reason. The animated series is not helping her one bit. But looking at that, I constantly keep telling myself, and I keep critiquing, why wouldn't they write her to be in a way to where it's like, she's in danger. Yes, she's supposed to. She's the damsel in distress. He loves her and he saves her. But why do they constantly keep putting her in danger just for the sake of her to be in danger? Why not have it be in a relation towards what she is? She is a reporter. She's a reporter and she is a thrill seeker. All right? She's an adrenaline junkie. Never forget that. And so it's like, well, why don't you write it to where the idea of her being first on the scene goes with the job, and that makes perfect sense, as well as the fact to where it's like, yeah, she would just get randomly chosen out of a group of people, or being as strong of willed of a woman as she is, she would volunteer herself to be put in trouble or to be in danger because she's someone who is like that. And so like that, to me, would be a perfect way of handling her character, rather than what the animated series does. She pulls up in her car, goes past the police, and then just start yelling at Superman, "That's the Superman, you get him." And it's like, what are you doing? It's like, why would she do that? This is goofy. She's like right underneath the building where rubble is falling. She chose to be there so you could have a moment of Superman going to save her. Like, I was so confused with that. I'm sorry, I'm on a tangent, but I'm trying to make you understand what I'm getting at in terms of like why this like was an idea that popped in my head. It just made me think like, wow, like this really could have used an improvement for somebody who just wasn't just, you know, kind of stupid on writing this. And you could have done anything to make her character likable, because the animated series Lois Lane is very likable. I like her a lot. She's a very likable character. Just to put her in danger, they have her do incredibly idiotic things that don't fit what it is that her mentality is in the show. Very odd. It's very odd. Is this video about the topic, or is this video about you bitching about Superman? I don't know. Maybe both. Maybe not. But like I've written, you know, I got my comic carpet with my friends. The link in the description if you want to, you know, check it out. And upon writing that, one of the funny things that I really enjoyed about writing for that comic, because there's so much content that we've written for it, it's just, you know, shit takes money. But it's one of the things was essentially writing stuff in terms of what I think would be deemed funny with these characters, and then passing it on to my friends, who would then look at it and go, "What the fuck are you doing?" and me understanding and then taken back by that and understanding like, what do you mean? And so it's like, I'm writing in my style with what I want these characters to do. And then upon them looking at it, they're both in agreement as this is too much in terms of what these characters would do. And then it's like, what? And so then they would edit, talk about what it is that should be there, what should be taken down, what should be taken out. And listening to them, I'm like, yeah, I forget they're in school. So I was like, yeah, I'm just, but that was just me. But then upon them editing it, like talking about it and whatnot, and they give it back to me when I read it, I'm looking at it and going, well, and I was like, well, here's some issues with this. Here's some issues with that. You add this in here, but this is a reference to a joke we've done before when you wrote it. And it's like, well, you now understand this. And then it just became a back and forth of dialogue to understand exactly where you hit that sweet spot for what it is that we wanted to write. And best believe when we do more with Carpet, you guys are definitely going to see that. But to me, that was a fun engaging thing to do with the characters, with the, you know, with everything that's going on. Things that essentially I thought or I deemed would be perfect for this, and it wasn't. Well, I'll put it on the back burner and I'll give it to something else eventually. You know, maybe carpet will grow to where the audience essentially will grow, and then that'll be something that I could introduce. Maybe. But it wasn't something where I was like, oh, if I can't do this, you know, like hell, even things that I deemed funny based off of stuff that I understood in terms of a reference or you know, pop culture thing that I could use. Hell, it's a My Little Pony joke that I fought really hard for. I'll never forget. I fought really hard for a My Little Pony joke, only because I just really wanted to use a My Little Pony joke, but it wasn't that I care of My Little Pony, but it was just the fact that I really wanted that joke, and they didn't get it because they're not in the know of My Little Pony and the war between DBZ fans and My Little Pony fans. So I needed to have that joke in there for that war, but I had to explain to them the minutia of the war in order to get that across. But again, that to me was the nature of writing, was the freedom of being confined and constrained in order to get something done or to have something the way how you wanted or you needed, not at essentially, what's the word I'm looking for? Not at the besmirchment of the actual product, but essentially at the benefit of what it is that you're writing for. So it's like, all right, yeah, you're held back from doing all of this, but that only helps this flourish. So now that you're held back, you could do so much more. You could do so much with it. I mean, we're seeing, and we have an entire archetype of creativity as far as anime is concerned, where the literal job is to adapt something that isn't your own, where the entire identity behind anime is just an adaptation. Well, I would say 80% of it is an adaptation. It's rare nowadays to actually see an anime that's an original anime, that you're able to come across as something that doesn't have a manga, doesn't have a light novel, doesn't have pre-existing content in order to facilitate its popularity, but instead just is. That's rare. But a majority of it are things that essentially had a manga, had a light novel, had pre-existing fans that already know and think and I understand what they want these characters to do, say, and act, and then you just have them move. The idea behind the manga in itself is just that it's a big old storyboard for the up-and-coming anime. So with that, the people who work on the anime are not the same people who wrote the manga, not the same people who drew for the manga. But you have to essentially take all that you know as far as animation is concerned, and then coincide, and then transform everything that you can do into this art style that isn't yours, using characters that aren't yours, using dialogue that isn't yours, using writing that isn't yours, and you're able to bring that to life and show it to the masses. That's your job. Your job is to confine, control, and compromise yourself in order to give the best that you can for something that isn't yours. And that's, to me, that's beautiful. That's a wonderful thing. I love anime. I love anime. But to me, that's a beautiful thing if you have the ability to do that. Yet at the same time, and like we've seen the positives and negatives of this thing, where it's like, if you're not up to par for handling or adapting something, it shows. And typically, because the general consensus behind anime is that it's a one-to-one adaptation, you get called out for your bullshit. Taking toll, the live action Cowboy Bebop and the live action One Piece, live action Death Note, they're bad adaptations. They're really bad adaptations. Whether or not anyone wants to admit it, they're incredibly bad adaptations. But the thing is that the majority of those adaptations struggle with the fact that the people behind it just wanted to facilitate their own ideology involving those characters. The literal negative behind working on something that isn't your own. And people called it out for it. They mentioned it. They talked about it. They explained why this is bad. And you have way too many people who are up on high that don't understand that. And it's like, yeah, they understand business. They don't understand creativity. They don't understand art. They don't have passion for this shit. That's what it is. You know, that's what the biz is. And all you got to do is essentially work around that in order for you to get what you need to get and do what you need to do. But I feel as if that is something that you honestly need to be able to tell yourself if you're going to do something like work on a video game, work on a comic book, work on a TV show or anything like that, if you're able to put your ideology, your personality, your mentality on the back burner in order for you to work on something that isn't yours and give it its due diligence so that it can shine properly based off of your skill being able to supersede what you want, then yeah, that's great. I mean, Craig McCracken, the guy who created Powerpuff Girls, the dude worked on Dexter's Laboratory. He didn't create Dexter's Laboratory. That was Gendy. That was Gendy's thing. But he worked on it. He helped him out with it. And then he went along to do Powerpuff Girls. Gendy helped on Powerpuff Girls. Powerpuff Girls is awesome. Then he did Foster Home for Imaginary Friends. Really good shows. And so it's something to where it's like I'm taken back and I'm appreciative of the fact that I know I have that ability, that I know I'm capable of doing such a thing. And it's not that it's like it's the greatest, nor is it that I don't need help or criticism and critiques upon me doing my works. I'm currently writing a book right now, and it's like, yeah, I'm constantly in my own head and in my own feelings about how I feel about it, because some things I'm looking at and I'm going, this is too simple. Some things I'm like, this is too complicated. Other things I'm like, yeah, you suck. But that's the nature of the beast that is my brain. But I find myself enjoying going through this process because I know I can go through this process. I can dip my finger in the work and creativity and things that aren't my own and pull my finger back out of it without having to stay or get lost in it. And it's a metaphor that's used for tackling grief, and I feel that it's necessary for tackling creativity right now, or to just put yourself in someone else's shoes when handling something. How did they feel when they made this? It was their baby. Whether or not you agree, disagree, or care about anything that's going on with it, the art form and what you're bringing to the table right now is just the best of your ability. Not what you think, not what you feel, because I see that this is way too much in the video games now, and it's just destroying it. And like, you know, it's a necessary evil, because as soon as it gets destroyed, it'll rise back up like the phoenix that it is. Oh, have mercy. I love you, video games. I love you. But I really do feel that this is something where you have to challenge people on to understand where they stand as far as this stuff is concerned. You know, as far as it is just overall proof of creativity and whether or not you have the capacity to do that. Can you look at a character that isn't your own, someone who you disagree with, someone who you don't even like, and you're able to write something and bring about something that is genuinely great for that character without you yourself having to compromise anything of yourself? Like, just because you write for Batman, even though you don't agree with the character of Batman, because you're crazy, but just because you don't agree with that character, does that mean that, like, oh, like you have to, you know, now you have to be all Batman, you have to go buy Batman stuff, go look at the movies? No, you don't need to know who he is, but at least understand what he is, what he represents. Why is he so popular? Why is all this the way that it is? Why does he do what he do? If your job is to essentially facilitate and help out this character, you need to understand the character, not what you think about the character, what the character means to the people who like the character. It's, you know, I've been talking for a minute, but it's just something that I find a difficult sell as just a hard thing to really try to truly explain to people. But yeah, I just felt that this was a topic that a lot of people just need to hear, or for me to talk about. I just wanted to get this off my chest. But yeah, honestly, there's like something to sit and think about. It's like, can you work on something that isn't your own and give it your all and do damn good with it? Can you? I don't know.